I hauled the last box through the front entrance of Mary Markley Hall on a Thursday in late January. Second semester. Everyone else had moved in back in August, had their routines down, knew which bathroom stall had the busted lock, and which vending machine ate your money. I was the guy showing up halfway through the year with a duffel bag and 3 cardboard boxes that used to hold printer paper. The lobby smelled like wet boots and a Chong industrial cleaner they use in every dorm, everywhere. A couple of people sat on the couches near the front desk, scrolling on their phones. Nobody looked up. I figured that was fine. I wasn't looking to make an entrance. My acceptance letter said I'd been placed in a room on the 4th floor. No elevator, apparently. Or maybe there was one and I just didn't see it. Either way, I took the stairs, shifting the box to my hip every few steps because the bottom was starting to give out. I'd packed my textbooks in this one. Stupid. By the 2nd floor landing, I was breathing hard. By the 3rd, I had to stop and set the box down for a second. My fingers were red from the cardboard edges. I should have made 2 trips. That's what a smart person would have done. 4th floor, finally. The hallway stretched out in both directions. Identical doors with whiteboard name tags and bulletin boards covered in flyers about study groups and intramural sports. I found my room number halfway down on the left. 412. The door was propped open with a sneaker. I knocked anyway, even though I could see inside. Seemed like the right thing to do. "Yeah, come in," someone called. I pushed the door wider and stepped in with my box. The room was small. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 window between them. The left side was buried. Clothes on the floor, energy drink cans on the desk, a pile of textbooks that looked like they'd never been opened stacked against the wall. The right side was empty, except for a bare mattress with the plastic still on it. The guy sitting on the messy bed stood up. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with thick dark hair and this heavy-lidded look, like he'd just woken up or was about to go back to sleep. He stuck out his hand. "Chad," he said, "you're Everett, right?" "Yeah." I set the box down on the bare mattress and shook his hand. His grip was firm but quick, like he wanted to get it over with. "Cool. Welcome to the palace." He gestured around the room, then immediately held up both hands. "Just so you know, all this mess is mine, not yours. I know it looks bad. I'm working on it." "It's fine," I said. It wasn't fine, but what else was I supposed to say? "No, seriously." He kicked a hoodie toward his side of the room. "I had a single last semester and I got used to spreading out. Bad habit, I'll clean it up." "Okay." He kept standing there, hands in the pockets of his joggers, looking at the floor. Housing screwed me over. My old roommate transferred and they were like, "You're getting someone new. No heads up or anything. Just an email 2 days ago." That explained the mess, and maybe the vibe. He didn't seem mad exactly, just tired. Like he'd been dealing with a bunch of small, annoying things and I was one more. "I just transferred in," I said. "They told me last week." "From where?" "Community college, downstate." "Oh, cool. Yeah." He nodded, but I could tell he didn't really care. That was fine too. I didn't need us to be best friends. I just needed a place to sleep and keep my stuff. I went back downstairs to grab the other 2 boxes. When I got back, Chad had moved some of the cans off his desk into a grocery bag. Progress, I guess. I started unpacking. Didn't take long. I didn't have much. Clothes in the dresser, toiletries on the shelf, laptop on the desk. I was folding my last hoodie when someone knocked on the doorframe. "Hey," I turned around. A guy stood in the doorway, older than us, maybe late 30s or early 40s. Slim build, ash brown hair cut short, pale skin, sharp cheekbones. He wore a gray hoodie and faded jeans and watched us with these flat gray eyes that didn't blink much. Chad looked up. "Oh, hey, Mikkel. Afternoon." The guy stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. His gaze landed on me. "You're the new resident." "Everett," I said. "Michael Roberts. I'm the RA for this floor." He reached into the front pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Need you to read this and sign at the bottom." He held it out. I took it. The paper was warm, like it had been sitting against his chest. "What is it?" I asked. "Building guidelines," Michael said. "Specific to Markley." I unfolded it. Chad had gone quiet, I noticed. He was sitting on his bed now, staring at his phone, but his shoulders were tight. Michael didn't move. He just stood there, hands loose at his sides, eyes on the paper. Or maybe on my hands. I couldn't tell. I started reading. The top of the page said, "Markley Night Notes" in bold print, all caps. Under that, a numbered list. 1. Do not use the south stairwell between 1:40 and 2:10 a.m. Use the north stairwell only during this window. I blinked. Read it again. Okay. Weird, but maybe there was maintenance or something. 2. If someone offers to help you with laundry or linens from a cart, politely decline. Do not accept items from the cart. That one made less sense. I looked up at Michael. He was still watching my hands. 3. The vending machine on the second floor sometimes displays irregular images. If you see anything resembling teeth or organic matter, do not make a purchase. Use the third floor machine instead. My stomach did a little flip. This had to be a prank. Some kind of hazing thing for mid-year transfers. 4. If you hear breathing or movement inside the fourth floor lounge closet, do not open the door. Report it to the RA on duty immediately. I stopped reading, looked at Chad. He was still staring at his phone, but his jaw was tight. "Is this a joke?" I asked. Michael's expression didn't change. "No. It sounds like a joke." "It's not." I looked back at the paper. There were 3 more rules. I skimmed them. Something about knocking patterns. Something about not answering questions from anyone in the laundry room after midnight. Something about keeping my door locked at all times, even if I was just going to the bathroom. "Everyone gets this?" I asked. "Everyone," Michael said. Chad finally spoke up. "Just sign it, man. It's required." His voice was flat, not sarcastic or annoyed, just flat. I looked at the bottom of the page. There was a line for a signature and a date. Above it, in smaller print, I acknowledged that I have read and understood the guidelines above. I didn't have a pen. Michael pulled one from his pocket and handed it to me. I signed. Dated it. January 26th. Michael took the paper back, folded it carefully, and slipped it into his hoodie pocket. "Keep your door locked," he said. Then he left. I stood there holding the pen. Chad let out a long breath. "What the hell was that?" I asked. Chad got up and took the paper from where Michael had set it on my desk. Wait. No. Michael had taken it back, hadn't he? I turned. There was another copy on my desk. McKeel must have left it. Chad picked it up and crossed the room to the mini fridge shoved in the corner. He crouched down, lifted the fridge a couple of inches with one hand and slid the paper underneath with the other. Then he let the fridge settle back down. "Everyone signs it," he said, straightening up. "And then you don't leave it lying around." "Why not?" he shrugged. "That's just what people do." 3 nights later, I came back from the Shapiro Library around 11:30. I'd been studying for my intro psych exam in one of those cubicles on the second floor, the kind with the dividers that made everything feel smaller and quieter than it actually was. My backpack felt heavier on the walk back. I'd loaded it with my laptop, the psych textbook, a notebook that was maybe half full, and a water bottle I'd forgotten to drink from. The front doors to Markley were propped open. Some guy in a North Face jacket was heading out, phone pressed to his ear, laughing about something. I stepped past him into the lobby. The fluorescent lights made everything look a little washed out. There was a different security guard at the desk tonight, not the one I'd seen before. This one was older, reading something on her phone with her chin propped on one hand. I turned toward the elevators. Michael was standing there, not waiting for the elevator, just standing. His back was to the wall between the 2 elevator doors, arms crossed. that same gray hoodie and jeans he'd worn when I first met him. His eyes tracked me the second I stepped into view. "Everett," he said. I stopped a few feet away. "Hey, you're coming from the library." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. "Yeah, studying." He glanced at the elevators, then back at me. His face didn't really change. "Good, you've been keeping regular hours." That felt like a weird thing to say. I adjusted the strap on my shoulder. "I guess. Have you used the stairs at all?" Once or twice, during the day." "Which stairwell?" "North side," I said, "the one by the bathroom." He nodded once, sharp and deliberate. "Good." The elevator dinged behind him. The doors slid open. Nobody got off. Michael didn't move. I stood there, waiting to see if he'd step inside or if this was going somewhere. He pulled his phone from his pocket, checked the screen, then put it back. Last semester, a student broke the south stairwell rule. My stomach did this small, tight thing. "What happened?" "He was a sophomore, engineering major, lived on the 3rd floor." Mitchell's voice stayed flat, like he was reciting something he'd memorized. "November 9th, he came back from a party around 1:50 in the morning, drunk. His friends said he laughed about the rules, said they were hazing bullshit." I didn't say anything. He took the south stairwell at 1:53 a.m. The elevator doors slid shut. The lobby felt quieter. "Nobody saw him again," Michael said. I swallowed. "What do you mean nobody saw him?" "His roommate reported him missing on the 10th. Campus police searched the building. They found his wallet and keys in his room. His phone pinged near Markley that night and then went offline. No activity after 1:54 a.m. "Did they check the stairwell?" "Multiple times." Michiel's eyes stayed on me. "They found nothing, no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage to the door or the walls. So what did they—" "The investigation concluded he left campus voluntarily. Winter semester drinking, poor judgment, possible mental health crisis. The case is still open but no longer active." I felt cold. "But you don't think that's what happened?" Michael didn't blink. "I think he broke the rule." The security guard's chair squeaked behind me. I glanced back. She was still on her phone, scrolling through something, completely uninterested in our conversation. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because you're new," Mikkel said. "And new residents sometimes test things. They want to see if the rules are real." "I'm not going to—" "Good." He pulled his phone out again, checked it. "It's 11:34. If you were going to use the stairs tonight, you'd be fine. The window doesn't start until 1:40 a.m. I shifted my backpack again. I was just going to take the elevator. Smart. He pushed off the wall, took a step closer. Not threatening exactly, just deliberate. "But if you're ever out late, past midnight, and you're walking back, you need to plan your route so you're not in this lobby between 1:35 and 2:15. That's a longer window than the rule said. The rule gives you the danger period. I'm giving you a buffer." His jaw tightened. "If you're cutting it close, take the long way around the building. Enter through the side door by the vending machines. It adds 3 minutes but keeps you away from the south stairwell entirely." "Okay." "Say it back." I blinked. "What?" "Tell me what you'll do if you're out past midnight." This felt excessive, but his expression didn't shift. He just waited. "I'll plan my route," I said slowly, "so I'm not in the lobby between 1:35 and 2:15. If I'm cutting it close, I'll use the side door." "Good." He stepped back, pressed the elevator button. "Keep your door locked. Don't talk to people in the laundry room after midnight." I remember the rules. Remembering isn't the same as following. The elevator dinged, the doors opened. He gestured for me to go first. I stepped inside. He followed. I hit the button for 4. He didn't press anything. The doors slid shut and the elevator lurched upward with that low mechanical hum that always sounded a little strained. Mikkel stood in the corner, arms crossed again, watching the floor numbers light up above the door. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. The elevator stopped on 4. The doors opened. I stepped out. Mikkel stayed inside. "Everett," he said. I turned. "Don't test it." The doors slid shut. The following week felt almost normal. I learned which showers had the best water pressure. Third one from the left in the bathroom near the north stairwell. I figured out that the cafeteria lines moved fastest around 11:15 in the morning, right after the breakfast crowd thinned, but before the lunch rush started. I got used to the constant building noise. Footsteps in the hallway at weird hours, doors slamming, someone's music bleeding through the walls around 2 in the morning, always bass-heavy and muffled. The radiator in our room clanked every time it kicked on, which was approximately every 40 minutes. Chad and I fell into a routine. He'd wake up around 10, grab food, go to class, or not go to class depending on his mood. I kept a tighter schedule. Classes, library, back to the room. We'd overlap in the evenings sometimes. He'd be on his bed scrolling through his phone or watching something on his laptop with one earbud in. I'd be at my desk working through problem sets or reading. Nothing tested the rules. I didn't go near the south stairwell. I used the north stairs during the day when I didn't feel like waiting for the elevator. I did laundry on a Wednesday afternoon, sorted my whites and colors in the basement with nobody else around. The second-floor vending machine looked normal every time I passed it. The fourth-floor lounge closet stayed shut. I started to think maybe Michael's story was just a scare tactic, something RAs told new students to keep them from doing stupid shit. Then Friday happened. Chad asked if I wanted to go to a party. It was around 8:30. I was finishing an essay for my writing seminar, something about narrative structure and modern journalism that I wasn't particularly invested in. Chad was pulling on his zip hoodie, the navy one with a small stain near the collar that he never seemed to notice. "Off Packard Street," he said. "Some guys I know from last semester. Should be decent." I saved my document. "I've got this essay. It's Friday." "I know. When's it due?" "Monday," he grinned. "So you've got all weekend. Come on. You've been here almost 2 weeks and you haven't done anything except go to class and hide in the library." That felt a little unfair, but also accurate. "I don't really know anyone," I said. "You'll know me, and you'll meet people. That's how it works." I looked at my laptop screen. The essay was maybe 70% done. I could finish it tomorrow. "Yeah," I said. "Okay." The party was in a house about 15 minutes from campus, the kind of place with peeling paint on the porch and couches that looked like they'd been on the curb at some point. Music poured out of the open front door. Inside it was packed. People in the kitchen, people in the living room, people on the stairs. Chad knew a bunch of them. He did that thing where he'd clap someone on the shoulder and launch into a conversation like they'd just talked yesterday. I stood near the kitchen counter holding a red cup someone had handed me. Beer, I think. It tasted watery and a little sour. I'm not great at parties. I can do small talk if I have to, but it always feels like I'm working harder than everyone else to keep the conversation going. I drank more than I meant to. It happened gradually. I'd finish one cup, someone would refill it. I'd be talking to some guy about his engineering project, and I'd take a sip without thinking. Then, another sip. By 11:30, I felt loose and warm, and like the room was tilting just slightly to the left. Chad was in the living room with a group, playing some drinking game I didn't understand. I thought about joining, but my head felt heavy, and I didn't want to sit on the floor. I stepped outside onto the porch. The cold air helped. I sat on the railing, pulled my phone out. 12:03 a.m. I should probably head back. I went inside to find Chad. He was still in the living room laughing at something, his arm around some girl I didn't recognize. I got his attention, told him I was leaving. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah, just tired." You know how to get back? I nodded. I'd walked here. It wasn't complicated. Packard to State, State to the Diag, cut through campus. Text me if you get lost, he said, then turned back to the game. I left. The walk back took longer than I expected. My legs felt unsteady, and I had to stop twice to make sure I was going the right direction. Campus was quieter at night. A few people walking in pairs, one guy on a bike with no lights. The Diag was empty except for a couple sitting on one of the benches near the middle. I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. My stomach dropped. Markley was still a few blocks away. If I kept my normal pace, I'd hit the lobby right around 1:55, maybe 2 o'clock, right in the middle of the window. I walked faster. My backpack bounced against my spine. The cold air burned in my lungs. I turned onto the street that led to Markley's main entrance and saw the building up ahead, all those windows lit in uneven patches. 1:53 a.m. I reached the front doors, pushed through. The lobby was bright and warm, and the elevator was on the 6th floor, the little number glowing above the doors. I pressed the call button. The elevator didn't move. I pressed it again. Still 6th floor. My heart was pounding. I could take the north stairwell. That was fine. That was allowed. I just have to walk around the building to get to it, out the front doors and along the side path. Or I turned. The south stairwell door was maybe 20 feet away, down a short hallway to my left, close, quiet. The elevator dinged. I looked up. 5th floor now. The stairwell would be faster. I checked my phone. 1:55 a.m. Just walk up 4 flights, 30 seconds. Maybe 45 if I took it slow. The elevator hit the 4th floor, stopped. Someone was getting on. I looked at the south stairwell door again. It was just a stairwell. The elevator started moving again. 3rd floor. I took a step toward the south stairwell, then another. The danger window was 140 to 210. I was right in the middle of it. But Mitchell's story, that could have been anything. A guy who left campus, had a breakdown, didn't want to be found. People did that. The elevator dinged. 2nd floor. I stood in front of the south stairwell door. My hand was on the handle. It was cold under my palm. I opened the south stairwell door. That was the mistake. I knew it the second I stepped through and the air changed. It wasn't just cold. It was colder than it should have been. The kind of temperature that doesn't make sense when you're inside a building with working heat. The concrete felt damp. Not wet exactly. Just unwelcoming in a way I couldn't pin down. The door swung shut behind me, and I stood there on the landing for maybe 2 seconds. Backpack heavy on my shoulders, hand still tingling from where I'd gripped the metal handle. The stairwell stretched down below me in that typical institutional way. Gray steps, metal railings, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Normal. Totally normal, except for the temperature and the way the air sat in my lungs wrong. I figured I'd just hustle down to the 4th floor and be done with it. Get to my room, lock the door, pass out. The alcohol was still making everything feel loose and disconnected, which probably didn't help my decision-making. I started down the first flight of stairs, one hand on the railing because my balance wasn't great. That's when I heard the wheels. They were rolling upward, slow, deliberate. The kind of rhythm that said someone was pushing something heavy up the stairs, taking their time with it. The sound echoed in the stairwell in a way that made it hard to tell exactly where it was coming from, but definitely below me. Definitely getting closer. I slowed down. Didn't stop, just slowed. Maybe it was maintenance or something. Cleaning crew. People worked overnight in dorms, that made sense. I kept going, rounding the landing between floors, and that's when I saw it. A linen cart. It came up from the flight below, pushed by someone in a dark maintenance shirt. Navy blue or black, I couldn't tell in the fluorescent light. The person had their face angled down, like they were watching the steps or concentrating on not tipping the cart. I couldn't see their features, just the top of their head and their shoulders and their hands gripping the cart's handle. The sheets on the cart looked wet, not dripping or anything, just damp, darker in some spots than others. They were piled up high, white fabric, or what should have been white fabric, stacked maybe 3 feet tall. The cart itself was one of those industrial metal ones with bars on the sides to keep things from sliding off. Standard hotel or hospital-type setup. I stopped on the landing. The person kept pushing the cart upward, wheels squeaking a little on each step. We were going to meet right there in the middle, and the stairwell wasn't wide enough for both of us and the cart to fit comfortably. I pressed myself against the wall, figuring I'd let them pass. Be polite. Get out of the way. The person looked up just enough to make a gesture. Not quite a wave. More of a beckoning motion with one hand, still gripping the cart handle with the other. They tilted their head toward the cart and then toward the door on the landing. The one that led out to the 3rd floor, I guess. Then they made another gesture, like they wanted me to squeeze past and hold the door for them. Their face was still angled down. I still couldn't see it properly. The elevator's broken, I thought. That made sense. That's why they were using the stairs. They needed help getting the cart through the landing door because it was heavy and awkward. I shifted aside, trying to make room. The cart was right next to me now. Wheels stopped, and I was standing maybe a foot away from it with my back against the concrete wall. The person gestured again. Hold the door. Squeeze past. Help me out. I started to move. That's when I noticed the shape under the sheets. Something pressed against the bars on the side of the cart. Not flat. Not shapeless. It had weight and contours, like there was something solid underneath pushing outward. The damp fabric clung to whatever it was, outlining curves and angles that my brain tried to process and couldn't quite land on. And the smell hit me. Sour sweet, thick. The kind of smell that coats the back of your throat and makes your stomach flip. I'd never smelled anything exactly like it before, but some part of me recognized it anyway. Something organic. Something wrong. I froze. My hand was halfway to the landing door and I just stopped moving. The person pushing the cart shifted their weight. Their hand came off the cart handle and reached toward me, probably to guide me past, or maybe to take my hand in thanks, or I don't know what. Except when I looked down at it, the fingers looked wrong. They weren't separate. I mean, they were fingers, I could see that, but they were fused together. Not all the way. There were still individual shapes, but they clustered in a way that didn't match human anatomy. Sticky looking. The skin had this texture that made me think of melted plastic or wet clay, and the digits were too close together, overlapping at the knuckles. The hand brushed my wrist. I jerked away so hard I slammed my shoulder into the wall. My backpack swung and threw me off balance. Panic kicked in. Not the kind where you think about it first, just pure physical reaction. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stumbled upward, back the way I'd come. The stairs blurred under my feet and I grabbed the railing with both hands to keep from falling. Behind me, I heard the cartwheels start rolling again. That same slow, deliberate rhythm. But I wasn't looking back. I was just climbing. My breath came in short gasps, and my heart was hammering, and the alcohol in my system made everything feel like it was happening through a layer of static. The top landing. The door I'd come through maybe 30 seconds ago. I could see it up ahead and I lunged for it, hand outstretched, ready to burst back into the normal 4th floor hallway and sprint to my room and lock the door and never think about this again. Michael Roberts blocked the exit. He was just there. Standing in front of the door with his back to it, gray hoodie and flat gray eyes and that same controlled expression he always wore. I didn't have time to stop. I was moving too fast, too panicked, and I was about to crash right into him when his hand shot out and grabbed my backpack strap. He yanked. I flew forward and sideways at the same time, pulled off my feet by the force of it. Michael hauled me through the doorway. He must have opened it behind him without me seeing, and I stumbled into the hallway, catching myself on my knees. The stairwell door slammed shut. The sound echoed down the hallway. Final. Definitive. I was on the floor with my hands on the carpet and my backpack twisted half off my shoulder, breathing hard, and Michael was standing over me with one hand still on the door handle. Michael kept one hand flat against the stairwell door, his shoulder pressed into it. The metal didn't move, but I heard something on the other side. A soft bump. Low down, maybe knee height. Then another one higher up. Testing the latch. That's what it felt like. Something checking if the door would open. Michael didn't look back at me. He stood there with his spine straight, and his weight braced and his eyes fixed on the handle. The bump stopped after maybe 10 seconds. The hallway went quiet again except for the radiator clanking somewhere down near the elevator. I stayed on my knees. My backpack strap cut into my left shoulder where it had twisted halfway off. My right wrist burned where those fingers had grabbed me. Not pain exactly, more like heat, greasy heat that wouldn't rub off. Michael finally stepped back from the door. He turned and looked down at me. His face didn't change. Same flat expression he'd had the first time he walked into my room with that folded paper. "The card only needs one touch," he said. His voice was quiet, matter of fact, the way someone would tell you the cafeteria closes at 9. "One touch to decide you belong on it," he added. "You almost crossed a line you can't come back from." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt coated. That sour, sweet smell was still in my nose. I swallowed and tasted it again. Michael crouched down next to me, not close, maybe 2 feet away. He pulled my backpack strap back onto my shoulder and straightened it without asking. "Can you stand?" he said. I nodded, pushed myself up using the wall. My legs shook a little, but they held. I figured he'd call campus police, file a report or whatever RAs do when residents break the rules, and almost get dragged onto a cart by something with melted fingers. But he didn't pull out his phone. He just stood there watching me with those gray eyes until I got my balance. "Come on," he said. He walked down the hallway toward the lounge. Not fast. He didn't look back to check if I followed, but I did anyway. My feet moved on their own. The carpet felt too soft under my shoes. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed louder than I remembered. The 4th floor lounge was at the end of the hall, past the elevator. Same layout as every floor, probably. Couch against one wall, couple of chairs, a TV mounted up high, vending machine in the corner. The closet door next to the vending machine. Rule 4, don't open it if you hear breathing. Michael pointed at the couch. "Sit." I sat. The cushion sagged in the middle where probably 100 people had sat before me. Michael stayed standing near the doorway with his arms crossed. The clock on the wall above the TV read 2:02 a.m. "You're going to stay here until 2:15, he said. "After that, you can go back to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out again tonight." "Okay," I said. My voice sounded hoarse. I cleared my throat. Michael's eyes flicked toward the vending machine. Just for a second. Then back to me. "Avoid the vending machine for the rest of the night," he said. I looked at it. Standard campus vending machine. Snickers, Doritos, Coke, Sprite. The glass front reflected the overhead lights. Nothing weird. Nothing moving. "Why?" I said. "Because I'm telling you to." That was it. No explanation. He turned and walked out of the lounge. His footsteps faded down the hallway. I heard a door open and close, maybe his room, maybe the stairwell again. I didn't know where RAs lived. I sat there facing the blank TV screen. My reflection stared back at me, tired eyes. Hoodie wrinkled, hair a mess. I looked drunk still, felt drunk still. But the fear cut through it enough that my hands weren't shaking anymore. My stomach rolled. That smell was stuck in my throat. I kept swallowing, but it wouldn't go away. I rubbed my right wrist. The skin felt normal, dry, but under that I could still feel the residue. Greasy, wrong. The kind of feeling that doesn't wash off because it's not really on the surface. The radiator clanked. I jumped. Just the radiator. Same sound it made every 40 minutes. The clock ticked forward. 2:03, 2:04, 2:05. At 2:06, the vending machine clicked. I looked. I shouldn't have, but I did. The interior light flickered once, then steadied. Behind the glass where the snacks should be, there were teeth instead. White shapes, curved, roots still attached like they'd been pulled fresh. Arranged in rows on the metal coils, molars on the top row, incisors below. Canines on the third row down. The coil in the middle started rotating. Slow, mechanical, like it was choosing which tooth to drop. I should have looked away. Michael told me not to look, but I couldn't stop watching the coil turn. Click, click, click. I stood up. My legs moved without asking permission. 3 steps toward the vending machine. 4. The teeth gleamed under the fluorescent light. Some of them had dark spots. Cavities, maybe. Or blood. The coil stopped on a molar. Second from the left. It had a gold filling. The machine hummed, waiting. Everett? I turned. Chad stood in the doorway rubbing his eyes. He wore joggers and a North Face tee, no shoes. His hair stuck up on one side. "What are you doing?" he said. I pointed at the vending machine. My hand shook. "Look at it," I said. Chad squinted at the machine. Took 2 steps into the lounge. "What am I looking at?" "The teeth," I said. "Behind the glass. There." "Dude." Chad yawned. Didn't cover his mouth. "It's a vending machine. No, look at the coils. There's teeth on them. Actual teeth." Chad walked past me to the machine, leaned in close, tapped the glass with one knuckle. Snickers, Doritos, Coke. He turned back to me. "You're wasted." "I'm not." "You smell like a frat basement." He was right about that. I probably did, but I wasn't making this up. The teeth were right there. Rows of them. Chad crossed his arms. Same stance Mikhail had used. "Mikhail got to you, didn't he?" "What?" "This is what he does. Freaks out new residents. Makes them see shit that isn't there." Chad shook his head. "My buddy Kevin lived here last year. Said Michael pulled this crap all the time. Told people the water fountain on 3 ran backwards at midnight. Convinced some girl her roommate was replaced with something that looked like her roommate but wasn't. It's all bullshit." "I saw something in the stairwell," I said. "Yeah, stairs. Because it's a stairwell." "There was a cart and someone pushing it. Their fingers were—" "Everett." Chad's voice flattened. "You're drunk. You got spooked. Mikhail's messing with you because that's what he does. Go to bed." He turned to leave, stopped in the doorway. "And stop letting him get in your head," he added. Then he was gone. Footsteps padding back down the hall. A door opening and closing. Room 412, probably. I looked at the vending machine again. The teeth were still there, still arranged on the coils. The molar with the gold filling sat in the drop slot now, waiting. Something hot rose up in my chest. Not fear this time. Anger, maybe. Or stubbornness. Chad thought I was making it up. Thought Michelle was playing games. Thought I couldn't tell the difference between drunk and real. I walked to the vending machine, put my hand against the change return slot. The metal was cold. I shoved my fingers up into the mechanism and felt around until I found the spring-loaded flap. Jammed it sideways with my thumb. The machine clicked. Different sound this time. Irritated. I kept my thumb in place, waited. My wrist still burned where those fingers had touched me. The teeth gleamed behind the glass. The coil with the gold molar started rotating backward. I didn't move. Just stood there with my hand in the change return and my eyes on the glass and my heart beating too fast. Waited to see what would happen next. The change return clicked again. Something dropped. I felt it land in my palm. Not metal, not round. warm and slick and wrong. My hand was still shoved up in the slot. I pulled it back fast. My fingers were wet. I looked down. A tooth sat in my palm. A molar, still attached to a chunk of gum tissue, pink and dark red at the edges where it had been torn away from wherever it came from. The tissue was warm. I could feel it pulsing a little. Or maybe that was just my hand shaking. The roots were exposed, white and stringy. The gum part was slick, almost gelatinous, and it left a wet streak across my skin when I shifted my hand. Blood wasn't dripping or anything, just this residue, thick. I could smell it, metallic and sour at the same time. I stared at it. My brain wasn't really working right. Still drunk, probably. Still processing the cart in the stairwell and the hand with the fused fingers, and now this. A tooth. From a vending machine. That I just shoved my hand into because I was mad or stubborn or some combination of both. Chad was still standing in the doorway. I looked up at him. Chad. He glanced over. His expression was annoyed. Dude, seriously, just go to bed. I held my hand out toward him. Palm up. The tooth sitting right there in the middle with the gum tissue draped over the side. Look. He squinted. Took a step closer. His eyes went to my hand. Then his face changed. The annoyed look dropped completely. He went pale. Not just a little. Actually pale. What the hell? Yeah. He stared at it. I could see his jaw working. He took another step, slower this time, and leaned in. His eyes were wide now, fixed on the tooth. Is that real? I don't know. My voice came out flat. It came out of the machine. That's not possible. I know. He didn't say anything for a few seconds, just kept staring. Then he looked at the vending machine, the glass. Behind it, I could still see the teeth on the coils, rows of them. The gold-filled molar was gone now. That slot was empty. Chad saw them too. I knew he did because his face went even paler and he took a step back. Okay, he said. Okay, that's not Doritos. No, that's... He stopped, shook his head, looked at my hand again. You need to put that down. Where? I don't know, just not in your hand. I didn't move. The tissue was still warm, still pulsing faintly. My wrist was burning again where the cart person had grabbed me. The whole night felt unreal, detached. I was standing in the 4th floor lounge at 2 a.m. holding a tooth that came out of a vending machine, and my roommate was finally not telling me I was imagining things. The lights dimmed, not all the way. Just enough that I noticed. The fluorescence overhead flickered once, then dropped to maybe 70% brightness. The lounge went dim and shadowy. The vending machine's interior light stayed steady. The teeth behind the glass gleamed. Then the lights brightened again, back to full, maybe brighter than full. Everything went harsh and white for a second. I squinted. Then they dimmed again. Chad swore under his breath. He was looking at the ceiling now, at the fixtures. I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow and even, coming toward the lounge. Michael stepped into the doorway. He looked at me first, then at my hand. His eyes went to the tooth. His expression didn't change. Not surprise, not disgust, nothing. Just that same flat, controlled look he always had. You touched it, he said. It fell into my hand. You put your hand in the machine. Yeah. He stepped into the room. The lights dimmed again. This time they stayed dim. Mikhail's gaze flicked up to the ceiling, then back to me. You can't touch it with bare skin, he said. His voice was quiet, procedural. And you can't let it hit the carpet. I looked down at the tooth, at the wet tissue in my palm. Why? Because I'm telling you not to. Chad made a noise, half laugh, half something else. That's not an answer. Michelle ignored him. He kept his eyes on me. Do you have something to wrap it in? I thought about it. My backpack was still on. I could dig through it, find something. But my hands were shaking and I didn't want to move the tooth more than I had to. I shook my head. Michael reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out a napkin, white, folded into a square. He held it out toward me, but didn't come closer. Wrap it. Don't let any part of it touch you again. I took the napkin with my left hand, unfolded it. It was just a regular napkin, the kind you'd get from the cafeteria. I spread it flat over my right palm, then carefully folded the edges up and over the tooth, making sure the tissue didn't touch my skin again. The napkin darkened where the wetness soaked through. I held it away from my body, my arm fully extended. Michael nodded once. Follow me. He turned and walked out of the lounge. I looked at Chad. Chad looked back at me. His face was still pale, but he wasn't saying anything, just standing there. I followed Michael into the hallway. He walked to the left, away from the elevator, away from the rooms. I'd been down this way before, but not often. Just the lounge, the bathroom, and a couple of storage closets I'd never opened. Michael moved fast, not running, just steady. His gray hoodie looked exactly the same as the first time I'd seen him. Same faded jeans, same scuffed shoes. It was the middle of the night and he was fully dressed. I wondered if he ever changed, if he slept. He always seemed to be around, always watching. We passed a glass trophy case mounted on the wall. Old awards from the 90s, dusty plaques, a couple of framed photos of students I didn't recognize. Michael turned his head away as we walked past it. Not obviously, just a slight shift, like he didn't want to see his reflection. I noticed that, I don't know why. My brain was latching onto details, trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense. We reached the end of the hallway, a plain door with a sign that read "Trash Room" in black letters. Michael pushed it open and held it. Inside. I stepped through. The room was small, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. Concrete floor, no windows, one overhead light, fluorescent and buzzing faintly. A large rolling trash bin sat against the far wall, the kind with wheels and a hinged lid. Next to it, a recycling bin. Both were metal, industrial. Michael came in behind me and let the door close. The room smelled like garbage, stale and sour. But underneath that, something else. Something I couldn't place. Damp, maybe. Organic. He pointed at the rolling bin. Drop it in there. I walked over. The napkin was still soaked through. I could feel the weight of the tooth inside it. I lifted the lid with my left hand. It was heavier than I expected. The hinges creaked. Inside, the bin was half full. Crumpled papers, a few plastic bottles, some torn fabric. Looked like strips of cloth or maybe sleeves from a shirt. Dark stains on some of them. I didn't look too close. I held the napkin over the opening. Let go. It dropped. But it didn't just land. It sank. Like the trash underneath had depth. More than it should. The napkin disappeared into the pile and kept going, down and down. I lost sight of it. The lid twitched. Just once. A little jerk to the left, like something inside had shifted. Michael grabbed my shoulder and yanked me backward. Hard. I stumbled and hit the wall. He stepped in front of me and slammed the lid shut. The sound echoed in the small room. Metal on metal. He stood there for a second, one hand flat on the lid, shoulders tense. Then he turned and shoved me toward the door. Out. I didn't argue. I grabbed the door handle and pulled it open. Stepped into the hallway. Michael followed and shut the door behind us. He didn't lock it, just closed it. Then he stood there staring at it like he was waiting to see if it would open again on its own. It didn't. He turned to me. His face was still flat, controlled, but his eyes looked tired. More tired than I'd ever seen them. Go to your room, he said. Lock the door. Don't come out until morning. I nodded. My wrist was still burning. My hand felt sticky where the tissue had touched me. I wanted to wash it, scrub it, but I also wanted to get as far away from that trash room as possible. I walked back down the hallway, past the trophy case, past the lounge. Chad was gone, probably back in our room. I didn't look at the vending machine. When I reached 412, I unlocked the door and went inside. Chad was sitting on his bed. He looked up when I came in. "You okay?" "Yeah." He didn't look convinced. Neither was I. I locked the door behind me. I skipped my 1:30 intro to sociology lecture. That was probably the first time I'd ever skipped a class on purpose. Not sick, not tired. Just decided not to go. I'd been sitting in my room for 3 hours by then. Chad was out. Some lunch thing with friends from last semester. The room was quiet except for the radiator and the bass from somebody's speakers 2 doors down. I kept looking at my right wrist. The greasy feeling was gone. The skin looked normal, but I could still feel where those fingers had grabbed me in the stairwell, could still remember the sticky texture and the way the digits didn't separate right. Michael had said the cart only needed one touch to decide someone belonged on it. I wanted to know what that meant. I wanted to know what Michael was. I wanted to know why he'd pulled me out of that stairwell, and why he always seemed to be around, and why his eyes stayed flat even when he was yanking me away from danger. So I left my room at 2:15 and walked down the hallway to the RA door at the far end, past the lounge and the trash room and the bathroom. The door had a laminated name tag that said Michael Roberts, RA in Arial font. The plastic yellowed at the edges. I knocked twice, no answer. I waited, knocked again, nothing. I tried the handle. It turned. The door opened. I stood there for probably 10 seconds, just looking at the gap. I figured Michiel would come around a corner any second and ask what I was doing. But the hallway stayed empty. The bass kept thumping. The radiator clanked once. I pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The room was identical in layout to mine and Chad's. 2 beds, 2 desks, 1 window between them. But everything else was wrong. The left bed had a plain navy comforter pulled tight with hospital corners, no wrinkles, the pillow centered perfectly. The right bed was the same. Both desks were empty. Not just clean, empty. No laptop, no papers, no pens, no water bottles, no charging cables. The surface of the left desk had a thin layer of dust. The right desk was wiped clean. The window blinds were halfway down, angled to let in gray afternoon light, but no direct view of the street. The walls were bare, no posters, no photos, no whiteboard, no corkboard with reminders. The closet doors were closed. I could see a sliver of the inside through the gap. A gray hoodie hanging on the left side, maybe 2 other shirts. That was it. It looked like a room staged for a housing brochure, or a room nobody actually lived in. I stepped farther inside and let the door close behind me. My backpack shifted on my shoulder. I felt like I was trespassing, which I guess I was. But the door had been unlocked. That counted for something. Probably. I walked to the left desk and touched the surface. My finger left a clean line in the dust. I opened the top drawer. Empty. Opened the second drawer. Also empty. The third drawer had a single black pen with no cap. That was it. The right desk had no dust. I opened its drawers. First one, empty. Second one, a folded piece of paper. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was another copy of the Markley Night Notes, the same list of rules Michael had given me on move-in day. The paper looked old, the creases worn soft. Someone had written, "Do not forget," in blue pen across the top margin. The handwriting was tight and slanted, each letter pressed hard enough to indent the page. I folded it back up and put it in the drawer. My heart was beating too fast. I didn't know what I was looking for. Proof of something, maybe. Proof Michiel was lying, or proof he was telling the truth. Proof he was human, or proof he wasn't. I crouched down and looked under the left bed. There was a shoebox pushed against the wall, plain cardboard with a lid. the kind shoes come in. I reached under and pulled it out. It was heavier than I expected. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed frame and lifted the lid. Inside were papers, old flyers printed on colored paper. Bright yellow, neon green, pale blue, all of them creased and faded. I pulled one out. It said, Hall Council Meeting, Thursday, March 13th, 2003, 7:00 p.m., lounge in Comic Sans font. Another one advertised a spring formal. Another one had a list of RA office hours with names I didn't recognize and a phone extension that started with a 3-digit prefix the university hadn't used in years. Under the flyers were newspapers, not whole papers, just front sections folded in half, the Michigan Daily. I pulled one out and checked the date in the top corner, March 2003. The headline was about the Iraq invasion. I pulled out another one, February 2003. Another one, April 2003. At the bottom of the box, under everything else, was a laminated student ID card. I picked it up. The photo showed Michiel. Same sharp cheekbones, same ash-brown hair cut short, same flat gray eyes. He looked younger in the picture, maybe mid-20s, but it was definitely him. The text next to the photo said, Michael Roberts, and listed a student ID number and a college affiliation. At the bottom right corner was an expiration date printed in small black letters, May 2003, 22 years ago. I stared at the card. The lamination was scratched and cloudy in places, the edges worn soft. I turned it over. The back had the university seal and a magnetic strip, nothing else. I put the card back in the box, put the newspapers back, put the flyers back, put the lid on. My hands were shaking a little. I didn't know what this meant. Maybe Mikkel had found the box somewhere. Maybe it belonged to someone else with the same name. Maybe the expiration date didn't mean what I thought it meant, but the face in the photo was his face, and he looked the same now as he did then. I shoved the box back under the bed and stood up. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of this room and go somewhere normal, and pretend I hadn't seen any of this. I turned toward the door. Wesley Tran was standing in the doorway. He was tall, taller than I'd realized in the stairwell, with thinning gray hair and a long nose and sunken cheeks. He wore a dark maintenance uniform, navy or black, with a name tag pinned to the chest. Behind him in the hallway I could see the linen cart, the same industrial metal frame with bars on the sides. It looked empty now. No sheets, no shapes pressing against the fabric, just an empty cart. Wesley smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You're not allowed in staff rooms, he said. His voice was polite and calm, the kind of tone someone uses when they're explaining a rule to a child. You'll need to come with me downstairs. I took a step back. My backpack hit the desk behind me. I was just leaving, I said. That's fine, Wesley said. He didn't move from the doorway. I'll walk you down. Make sure you find your way. His eyes were wrong. They were pale, light gray, or maybe very light blue. And they didn't blink. They just stayed fixed on me, steady and unmoving, the pupils too small for the dim hallway light. I'm good, I said. I know the way. I insist. He stepped into the room. The cart stayed in the hallway, but I heard it roll forward half a foot, the wheels making no sound at all on the carpet. I moved sideways along the desk, putting more distance between us. Wesley tracked the movement with his head, but his eyes didn't shift. He took another step inside. You really shouldn't be in here, he said, still polite, still calm. Students aren't allowed in RA rooms without permission. That's a housing policy, I'm sure you understand. I'll leave right now, I said. I know you will. He smiled again. I'll make sure of it. He reached one hand toward me. I bolted. I shoved past him hard, my shoulders slamming into his chest, and he was solid and cold and didn't grunt or stumble. I hit the hallway and ran left, away from my room, toward the lounge. Behind me, I heard Wesley's footsteps, slow and even, and the cartwheels rolling smooth and silent. The hallway lights ahead of me clicked off, not all at once. One fixture, then the next, each one going dark in sequence as I ran toward them. The fluorescent tubes made a soft electric hum as they died. I kept running. The lounge was 15 feet ahead, then 10, then 5. I looked back once. Wesley was walking, not running. His pace hadn't changed. The cart rolled beside him now, keeping pace, and I could see wet sheets draped over the sides trailing along the carpet. His eyes were still locked on me. I lunged through the lounge doorway and spun left toward the closet. The door was closed. I grabbed the handle and yanked it open. The smell hit me first, detergent and rot, sweet and sour at the same time, thick enough to coat my throat. The closet was narrow and deep, maybe 3 feet wide and 6 feet back, crammed with metal shelves holding cleaning supplies, bottles of bleach, rolls of paper towels, a mop leaning in the corner, and underneath all of it, that rot smell, organic and wrong. I stepped inside anyway. I pulled the door shut behind me and pressed my back against the shelves. A spray bottle dug into my spine. I held my breath. I heard the cartwheels in the lounge. Slow, methodical. Rolling in a circle, maybe, or back and forth. I couldn't tell. I couldn't see anything. The closet was completely dark. Then I heard breathing right next to my ear, close enough that I felt the exhale against my neck, warm and damp. I froze. The breathing continued, in and out, steady, human. Someone else was in here with me. I opened my mouth to say something, I don't know what, and the breathing stopped, just stopped. Mid-exhale, a hand touched my shoulder, not grabbing, just resting there. The fingers were normal, separate, warm. The hand pressed down gently, guiding me lower. I crouched. The hand stayed on my shoulder, pushing me down farther until I was almost sitting. My knees hit the floor. The wall behind me flexed. Not collapsed, flexed, like fabric pulling tight and then releasing. I felt it give way, and then I was falling backward, my backpack scraping against something, my hands reaching out for balance. I landed hard on carpet. Different carpet, thicker, softer. The air smelled normal, no detergent, no rot. I blinked. I was in Michael's room, the RA room I'd just left. I was sitting on the floor between the 2 beds, facing the closet. The closet door was closed. Behind me, I heard a soft scraping sound, metal on metal, and then a click. Michael was crouched next to me. He had one hand on a section of wall next to the closet that looked like every other section of wall. Plain white paint, no seams, no panel. But I'd just come through it. I'd felt it flex and let me through. Michael pressed his palm flat against the wall. The surface rippled once under his hand, then went still. Outside in the hallway, I heard the cart rolling, back and forth, slow, searching. Michael stayed crouched with his hand on the wall, his head tilted slightly like he was listening. His gray eyes flicked toward me once, then back to the wall. He didn't say anything. We waited. The cart rolled past the door, paused, rolled back. The wheels made no sound, but I could feel the vibration through the floor, a faint rhythmic pulse. It stopped directly outside the door. Mikkel's jaw tightened. He kept his hand pressed flat against the wall, his shoulders tense. I held my breath. The cart stayed there for maybe 30 seconds. Then it rolled away, slow and deliberate, the vibration fading as it moved down the hallway toward the elevator. Michael waited another full minute before he pulled his hand away from the wall. He stood up and looked down at me, his expression flat and controlled as always. "Shortcuts only work if nobody's hunting for them," he said. "Once something's actively looking, the paths close up. You got lucky." I pushed myself to my feet. My legs were shaking. "What the hell was that?" "Exactly what I told you to avoid." Michiel walked to the left bed and crouched down, reaching under it. He pulled out the shoebox. You went into a staff room. He saw you. Now he knows you're aware enough to look for answers, which makes you interesting. He was in the stairwell, I said, with the cart. He's the one who... I know. Michael stood up and shoved the shoebox into my arms. I caught it reflexively, the cardboard edges digging into my forearms. And now you need to get this out of the building. I looked down at the box. Why? Because the cart can claim anyone it's touched or anyone who's accepted help from it. Michael's voice was flat, procedural. Your wrist counts. That grab in the stairwell marked you. The cart thinks you're halfway to belonging to it already. If you stay in this building past midnight, it'll come looking again. And next time, I might not be close enough to pull you out. So I leave, I said. I just don't come back tonight. You need to get rid of that first. He pointed at the shoebox. Take it out of Markley. Don't bring it back. Don't leave it in your room. Don't give it to anyone inside this building. Just get it out. What is it? Proof I existed before this. Michael's eyes stayed flat. And if it stays here, it stops being proof and starts being evidence. The building doesn't like evidence. I wanted to ask what that meant. I wanted to ask how old he really was and what had happened in 2003 and why his student ID expired 22 years ago, but he still looked the same. But his expression told me he wasn't going to answer. You need to go now, Michael said. Wesley's doing rounds, but he'll loop back through in 10 minutes. Use the north stairwell. Go straight to the front desk. Don't stop. I held the shoebox against my chest. It was heavier than it should have been for just some flyers and newspapers and one laminated card. And then what? Then you stay away until tomorrow. Michiel walked to the door and opened it, checking the hallway. After midnight, he'll move on to someone else. The mark fades if you're not available. That's it? That's it. I didn't believe him, but I also didn't have a better option. I shifted the shoebox under one arm and walked to the door. The hallway was empty, all the lights back on, fluorescent and steady. No cart, no Wesley, just normal dorm sounds, someone's TV, a door slamming, voices talking 2 floors down. Michael stepped aside to let me pass. Don't come back tonight, he said again. I nodded and walked toward the north stairwell as fast as I could without running. The front desk was in the lobby, right inside the main entrance. Brooklyn Ramirez sat behind it in a security windbreaker. Her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, scrolling through her phone with a bored expression. She looked up when I got close. "Help you?" she said. I stopped in front of the desk. The shoebox was tucked under my left arm, my backpack hanging off my right shoulder. I was breathing too hard for someone who just walked down 4 flights of stairs. "I need you to take this," I said, setting the box on the counter. Brooklyn looked at it. "What is it?" "Just papers, old stuff. I need it out of my room." She frowned. "So throw it away." "I can't." I pushed the box toward her. "Can you just take it, please?" Brooklyn picked up the box and lifted the lid, glancing inside. She saw the flyers and newspapers, shrugged, and set the lid back down. "If you don't want it, I can send it down to the basement. We've got storage for move-out stuff." I froze. The basement. "Yeah, lost and found, donations, whatever. We keep it down there until the end of the semester." My hand shot out and grabbed the box back. Brooklyn blinked. "Never mind," I said. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'll handle it." She shrugged again and went back to her phone. I turned and walked straight to the front doors, pushed through them, and stepped out into the cold. It was probably 35 degrees outside, gray sky, wind cutting through my hoodie. I didn't stop. I crossed East Huron Street without looking, a car honking as it swerved around me, and kept walking. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. Away from Markley, away from the cart, away from Wesley's pale, unblinking eyes. I made it to the Diag, then kept going, past the libraries, past the bookstore, past clusters of students walking to class or sitting on benches talking. Normal people doing normal things. I felt like I was watching them from behind glass. I stopped at the graduate library steps. The grad library was this huge stone building on South University, always open, always full of grad students camped out in carrels with thermoses of coffee and stacks of books. It felt real, solid. I sat down on the top step, my back against one of the columns, and put the shoebox on my lap. I opened it again. The flyers were still there. The newspapers were still there. I pulled out the laminated student ID and looked at Michel's face, 22 years younger but identical. I put it aside and dug deeper. At the very bottom, under everything else, were 4 photo booth strips, the kind you get at the mall or the movie theater. 4 shots in a vertical column, printed on thin, glossy paper. I pulled them out. The first strip showed Michael with 3 other people, all of them crammed into the frame, laughing. The date stamped in the bottom corner said March 2003. Michael looked happy, relaxed, human. The second strip was the same group, different poses, same date. The third strip, same thing. Same people, same month, same year. The fourth strip was just Michael, alone. His expression was different. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open, like someone had just told him something terrible, and he was still processing it. The date was April 2003, 1 month later. I stared at that last photo. He looked like someone who'd been warned about his future and couldn't do anything to stop it. I put the strips back in the box and closed the lid. Then I pulled up my right sleeve and checked my wrist. There was a mark, thin and gray, circling my wrist where Wesley's hand had grabbed me in the stairwell. It looked like a bruise, but the texture was wrong, smooth and slightly raised, more like a scar or a fingerprint pressed into the skin and left behind. I pulled my sleeve back down. I didn't go back to Markley that night. I texted Cindy Hamilton, a friend from my writing seminar who lived in a different dorm on North Campus, and asked if I could crash on her couch. She said yes without asking why. I took the bus up there, ate pizza she ordered, and slept under a blanket that smelled like lavender detergent. The shoebox stayed in my backpack. The next morning, I went to the housing office in the admin building on State Street. A woman named Lillian Bryant sat behind a desk in a cardigan and glasses, her blonde hair pulled back, an ID badge clipped to her collar. "I need to file an emergency move request," I said. She pulled up a form on her computer. "What's the reason?" "Roommate conflict," I said. It was the first thing I could think of that sounded normal. Lillian's fingers paused on the keyboard. She looked at me, her light blue eyes steady and evaluating. "Which building?" "Markley." Something shifted in her expression. Not surprise. Recognition. She nodded once and went back to typing. "We'll have you out by the end of the week," she said. That was it. No follow-up questions. No request for details. She printed a form, had me sign it, and told me I'd get an email with my new room assignment within 48 hours. I left feeling like she'd seen this before. Like I wasn't the first person to walk into her office and ask to leave Markley without explaining why. Over the next week, I stayed in my new room, South Quad, 5th floor, roommate who was never there, and avoided that whole section of campus. But I checked the housing website once. Michael Roberts was still listed as the RA for Markley 4th floor. His email was still active. His office hours were still posted. I heard from Chad that the same guy in the gray hoodie and scuffed shoes kept doing rounds at 2 in the morning. Same flat gray eyes, same controlled expression, still pulling people out of stairwells, still handing out the Markley night notes to new residents, still making sure everyone followed the rules. The building kept its schedule, the cart kept its route, and Michael kept watching, stuck in the same hallway, the same shift, the same 22 years, making sure nobody else ended up like him. I still had the shoebox. I never opened it again.